This episode of I Am Salt Lake podcast is proudly sponsored by Jed's Barbershop. With 3 locations, you have no reason to not always look your best. Go get a haircut, a beard trim, or even a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday 9 to 7, and Sunday 12 to 5. Their newest 3rd location is located at 167 East, 900 South, right next to Randy's Records. They also have a location downtown at 212 South, 700 East, and in Sugar House at 2153 East, 2100 South. Head on over to jedsbarbershop.com for more information.
Showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Welcome to episode 286 of I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name's Chris Hollifield.
And I'm Chrissy Hollifield.
Today on the podcast, we sit down and chat with Stefanie, Marlow, and Bryan Holbrook from the local Salt Lake City band BYSTS. We get a chance to find out their story, how the band started, obstacles they faced along the way, as well as a brand new release of theirs that they just barely put out.
Which is so cool. I've actually known Steph for about a year now. We've been friends, and she's so humble that she never told me about this band. She just has been doing it, and I've been so excited to get her on the podcast and actually hear her story.
You were like, Chris, we need to book them on the show.
I was kind of stubborn.
And so we finally got them on. We're going to play that conversation here in just a minute. Before we get into all of that, we want to take a moment to invite you to join the I Am Salt Lake Community Facebook group. It's a group that we created a while back where we get to hang out with other listeners and share thoughts about the podcast, as well as everything rad about Salt Lake City. We'd love you to be part of it. You can find it by going to iamsaltlake.com/group. This is going to forward you over to the Facebook site and forward you to the group where you can request to join up and hang out with us.
Come be our friend.
Hey, from time to time, we all run into those events that we need a photographer, whether it's a family get-together, headshots, or like Chrissy and myself, we were looking for a wedding photographer. We want to invite you to check out the photography of local photographer Amanda DeWolf. She's the one who took all of our wedding pictures.
She did such a great job.
I know I couldn't seriously be any happier with how they turned out.
They were amazing.
You could check out all of her work by going to the website amandakmemories.com. You can get in touch with her there. You could check out her portfolio. Again, the website is amandakmemories.com. So I completely spaced it last week when we recorded, but I got a notification from Facebook. You know, they go do the memories and they remind you of things.
Isn't that great? Thanks, Facebook.
Well, sometimes memories are not the most...
sometimes bad.
You know, you don't want to remember everything, but it reminded me of the very first episode that you co-hosted with me.
Yeah.
And that was with 3 Pines Coffee.
I remember it well.
And that was a year ago this last week. Can you imagine that you've been co-hosting this podcast now for a year, Chrissy?
It doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like I've been doing it that long.
You know, I wanted to take a moment. I know it's a lot of hard work for you, especially during your pregnancy, especially, you know, you have 3 other kids that you take care of. You got a full-time job, all of that. But you still take time every week to come and sit down and chat with people. And then you do all the other stuff with the podcast. I mean, you do the web design, you do the design, you come up with, you know, fun little merch stuff.
It's fun. It's easier to hide behind a computer, I'll be honest.
It's been a lot of fun to do this podcast with you.
It really has. I've enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Absolutely. Hey, this episode is also sponsored by Oleo Skin and Beard. If you're like us, your skin is dry. And if you're like me, your beard is dry. You need to moisturize. Oleo Skin and Beard carries an amazing line of skin oils, beard butters for moisturizing and shaping the beard, even some great facial cleansers.
They have a good line of facial masks for women. Go check them out.
Hey, head on over to their website, oleoskin.com. Use the promo code IAMSaltLake, all one word. Use that at checkout. It's going to give you 25% off of your entire purchase. Again, the website is oleoskin.com. All right, let's jump into that conversation that we had at our office with Stefanie and Bryan from the band BYSTS. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy. Did you both grow up here in Utah?
I did, but Stefanie
I did not.
is from not here.
From not here.
Where are you from, Stefanie?
I'm actually. I was born in Brazil. My parents moved to the States when I was 5, and I grew up in Los Angeles. And then I moved out here to Salt Lake about 10 years ago.
Okay, what brought you to Salt Lake?
I opened up the Urban Outfitters at the Gateway Mall.
Well, that's exciting.
You did? I didn't know that. I've walked through there.
Gosh, was that 10 years ago that I
It'll be-
remember?
Are they still around?
Oh, yeah.
See?
Barely.
Yeah, after you left, they just...
They're hanging on a thread up
Right.
there. I
Yeah.
used to work at the Gateway Mall myself years ago, probably 10 years ago at the Brookstone. Do you remember?
Okay, yeah.
I think they're in a different location now, but I used to the massage chairs and all of that stuff.
Did you give massages?
I didn't
Happy
give
endings?
I didn't no happy endings. I think we
That's why I
could've
never went.
had a few more customers.
I always went. That's
But,
fun part.
I always like to kind of even find out a little bit about people before we jump right into music. And I mean, obviously with your band. How do you pronounce the name of your band?
So it's pronounced Beasts.
Beasts.
Even though it's spelled not like it sounds.
It's still kind of phonetical.
Yeah, it still would
Yeah.
probably work. Yeah, I figured once we spelled it that way, they'll pick up on
I
it.
like that actually. And I'm glad I asked that for the recording, just because I'm sure a lot of people, I'm not the
Yeah.
first time somebody's
No.
asked that.
Yeah, everybody always
Yeah, that's why
asks.
like on social media we have like in brackets like beasts, like
Right.
Really?
just to like let people know that's how it's pronounced because we do get a lot of people.
Yeah.
And when Bryan came up with a name and I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. And I just kind of figured it was Beasts. So I was kind of surprised when people were like, Beasts.
Beasts.
But I totally get it.
Little bits.
But yeah, it was fun because then we Googled it to see
if anybody had
if
it.
anybody had
or
it.
if it stood for anything.
And we found lots of boobs because apparently in Swedish it
means breasts. So we
Great.
So it kinda has a
agreed.
double
So that was
meaning.
like
Yeah, we gave it
definitely
a thumbs
like
up.
for sure this is going to be our name. Like as soon as I saw boobs,
You're like, well, boobs.
I was like,
Boobs. Yeah, we'll take it.
It's like, duh, this is going to be our name.
So give me a little bit of history here of the band, right? Because we were even chatting before. I mean,
Sure.
it sounds like you've both have been playing music for a while here in the
Yeah.
area. You have a little bit of history. This isn't like a week-long project that you've done. I mean,
No.
Actually, yeah, I've only known Bryan for about a week.
Just met her. So before Beast, Steph and I actually had played in another local band that people were familiar with. It started off as Furs, which I didn't know that people even remembered that, but I've ran into people like, oh yeah, Furs, and like you were on this compilation, you toured here or whatever.
the name definitely rings a bell for me.
Yeah, I'm always surprised when people remember. I was like, oh, cool. I didn't know people gave a shit.
How long ago was that?
That was like, okay, so maybe 8 years ago.
Okay.
9 years ago. And then it transitioned into...
First was longer than that because that was before I
Yeah.
even moved to Salt Lake. So that was
Right.
about 12 years ago.
No,
It was
because
like
that would have
11,
made me
12.
20. I wasn't 20. I was like 24, 23. Yeah. But yeah, so it started off as Furs with... So you had on Eli a while ago from Ether. So James Acton was in that band originally. And so he's one of their percussionists. And still is. I don't know how often they play now, but he and I met in another band. So it was like the first band that I had decided to join. Just like I was moving furniture for this girl I knew, and this guy Steve LD, and he had this band. He's like, "Oh, you should come play." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I played a lot on my own, and then I went there. James Acton was in that practice, and he and I just got along through smoking cigarettes, and it turned out we had similar
The great
taste.
glue that
I know.
binds
You go outside, it's like, oh, you smoke, I'll go smoke with you. And so we went outside and just started talking about bands, and it turned out we had a lot of similar tastes in music, and started hanging out. And I had all these recordings because I'd been recording a lot just on my own, just like this little 4-track. And then he's like, oh, we should start a group as well. And then and I didn't know his history, playing like in all these massive, like legendary, local bands. I was just like some kid.
And was this never in any bands before?
I had never been in any bands before, like whatsoever. I'd played a little bit in high school, but just on my own. But we were all
You
terrible.
just enjoyed playing?
Yeah,
kind of thing?
but I didn't really start playing guitar until I was like 19. So, I mean, I kind of like a little bit. I played drums in high school a bit, but it was just all self-taught, just like on my own, recording stuff like independently.
I want to get more into that here. And then, but Beast, when did that?
Oh yeah, that
Oh,
was
yeah, that's right. Was that the question?
Yeah,
or
so
something?
then-
Sorry.
Well, no, I don't
Come all the way
even
back.
remember the
Yeah.
original.
so
That's what I love about podcasts.
I know,
though,
just-
right? Just
You can talk about whatever.
So I think we were
Yeah.
talking about like the history of like how you and I started playing together. And so I was playing when I moved out here. I started playing with this group called the Come Down, and I was playing drums for them. And we were in the same circle of friends as Bryan and the Furs, and we would play shows together. And then one summer, Bryan was like, "Hey," because I guess a couple of people had left the band, and he's like, "I need a drummer. Do you want to play drums for me?" So then I joined playing drums, and then we found another bass player, and then we eventually became the Plastic Furs and added a couple more members, and then. Just with, it's difficult running a band with,
a lot of people.
three other
A lot of
people.
people, yeah.
Yeah, and like
that's-
trying to
that's
get on
what
the
I've
same
heard.
page.
That's
Yeah.
I've heard.
Yeah.
I've never played in a band.
Yeah.
I can play instruments.
I've watched
sort of.
bands
Yeah.
have drama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, and it's
there's
hard
that.
because it's like, hey, we want to go on tour, and it's
Yeah.
like, well, I don't know. Well, I don't.
yeah.
But also,
it-
it's just like being married to them. Like literally, you are
Oh
with
yeah,
the person.
because you guys
spend
have
so much
to
time.
you have to agree on everything, or at
Yeah.
least like begrudgingly agree on everything.
Yeah, yeah.
and
Yeah.
open up your
or
schedules
just
for each
shove
other.
your actual opinion really down.
Yeah, 'cause you
far
also-
down
as far as
until it
possible.
explodes at a really improper time
Yeah.
on tour at a show,
Like on stage.
Yeah, which is a common occurrence.
Yeah, and like you have to take votes from people,
Right.
and just to make sure everyone's on the same page, or what decisions should we make as a married quadruple couple? It's not a couple. It's a
It's
polyamorous-
I couldn't even imagine
Yeah.
going through all that.
But what's great about it is those people are still like it's just a really unusual, dreamy kind of memory that you have with all these different people. So from all these different bands, I mean, most of those people still play and we're still friends. So, Terrence, we were in Tiny Lights together, Terrence Warburton, for like Wildly Shades and Night Sweats. And then Ian Moore, I mean, he still plays in Donner Party House and like has his own projects. There's just, it's fun. So like you just have this relationship.
Did you ever play any shows at the Moroccan? Because I know we talked about that in that Ether.
I remember
interview.
hearing that. And
did you
no,
ever go
'cause
to any shows there?
No, I was like,
it was a fantastic.
I think I was too young, but James would always talk about it. He's like, oh, the best times in Salt Lake was the Moroccan. And then when you
You're
guys,
not that young. How? You,
Oh, I'm 32.
Okay,
So I'm not
okay.
that young.
Yeah,
but,
I was going to say you're not that. I guess that is go back X amount of years.
Yeah,
and
yeah. Like
then-
I think I must have just missed it. Like it had just like shut down when I started playing out.
And
So-
the thing is the Moroccan, it's not like today I think it would have been all that amazing, but back then that was one of the only places we had in Salt Lake for music. And there wasn't a lot of options, and that was like the place to go.
Yeah, well, it's still even interesting to think about what there was, within the last like 5 years that's gone. Bird's Tiki Lounge is gone. That's super weird. I mean, we used to play there a lot, and it's just funny because that shitty fucking pole, like
That
right in
was
the middle of the
all we-
stage.
right in the
pillar.
middle.
Right in the middle of the stage, yeah. And you just played. You just had to play with this beam in the middle of your set, which is
But
great.
it was a fun place to go.
It was a fun place to go,
It was
Yeah.
a
That place
really
gone,
a really fun place to. Now, so Beast, it's just the two of you.
Yeah.
It's just the two of us.
Yeah, so then,
Yeah.
I mean, we gelled so well musically that we're like, we can just do this, the two of us.
Yeah.
Which makes it
So-
probably a lot easier to not have
Yeah.
a third and fourth person in the band.
It's
so many less
great.
things to juggle.
Yeah. It's good not to have that third person, but it's always kind of alluring. But the longer we go without it, because it would make it like it would make our stage presence that much bigger right away because you'd have a drummer or like
Yeah.
another guitarist. I mean, I'm glad we haven't done that because it was also a good choice just for travel. So like touring around, it's going to be a lot easier. I mean, when we went to Toronto, it's like not a problem. Just bought our plane tickets, carried our pedals up there, and just like
So
flew out.
wait, you guys played in Toronto.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
played this Canadian Music Week. So it's like their South by Southwest. We like really early on because of like some of our demos that we had made last year, and then they're like,
Well, they have
applied.
North by Northwest.
They have
So
North
it's like, it's the other North by Northwest.
It's the other North by Northwest, yeah.
Just with a different name. Yeah. It's the same thing.
No, that was really cool. Like Eagles of Death Metal was there, and like Black Lips and No Joy, and I think like Baroness. Like there was a lot of big bands up there, so it was cool. It was fun. Like that was actually like our first official show out.
Oh, really?
Since
Yeah, but it was
as
also an
Beasts.
experiment. We're like,
Yeah.
okay, we're a two-piece now. Like, let's see
see.
how
Was that a
this
really
is going.
stressful first try for a live show?
Well, I mean, it was, but it was
yeah.
also, we wanted to do that because it was
Yeah.
kind of like the story. Like, it was just like, it'd be hilarious. So just because we'd play it so many times. Like, we'd played like thousands of shows. I mean, like,
Not that.
like maybe 1,000 shows, and then, just in all these other bands. And so, like, we had the stage experience. Like, I knew what it was like working with like sound people. And so, but the story just seemed like it'd be really great to say, like, first show was like, we just flew to Canada and then played at this festival. And
I've heard it's tough for bands to get into Canada, but I guess if you flew there, it would have been a lot easier than trying to drive across the border.
They don't
if
want to
you're
check
on
all of your
tour.
equipment for
Exactly.
contraband.
You know what? I actually want to do before we get too far in here. I want to give the listeners a taste of what you sound like.
Oh, sure.
Because I'm sure a lot of people listening right now have never even heard you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a song we could play here, stitch into the podcast?
Yeah.
That would be really cool to give the listeners an idea what you're all about.
I think Need would be a good one. That's a pretty good one.
That seems to be the one that.
Okay. Yeah, that people like
it's
across
a fun
the board.
song.
Yeah, it's just very relatable in a rock and roll sense. Like, it's probably the purest rock and roll song we have. The rest are like really noisy. So, but that one's just like a solid.
Okay.
Like,
Well, we'll play Need.
excited.
And I'll put the links at iamsaltlake.com where people can check out all of your music, of course.
Right.
If they're digging on this and whatnot. But then we'll be back and chat with you guys some more. So hang tight.
So, okay, I don't know a lot about music, so I'm just going to ask weird stuff or weird shit. Steph, I have known you for a little while, and one of the first times I met you, you stood up and told a story that blew me away about being held at gunpoint in your own house. What is that?
It's a fun story, but it's also one that like traumatized me for a little while.
Oh, I could imagine being held up at gunpoint.
But it's really funny because, okay, I was coming home from a friend's house one night. This was when I was living with my parents. And we had a fun night. I was in a good mood. Go up to just put the key inside of the door. The key was inside the door and I was like just ready to walk into my house. And someone all of a sudden stopped and was like, hey, can I ask you for directions? Just in their car. And I was like, I'm in a good mood. Why the fuck not? Right?
Yeah.
So I walked down to the sidewalk. I remember all of this like so consciously because I was like, this is weird. I'm walking down to the sidewalk. Like as I was doing it.
You have a narrative in your head.
I did. The whole time I was like, yeah, anyway. So I get down to the sidewalk and he's like, yeah, I was just wondering if, and then all of a sudden someone comes out of the passenger side with his hand behind his back. And right away I was like, oh shit. I was like, okay. And then he pulls out a gun. And he's like, turn around. Don't look at me. And he's like, walk up to the door. And he said, how many people are in the house right now? And I just pulled out some number off the top of my head. I was like, 10 people. So I'm like, I'm going to give him something that's going to make him be like, oh, never mind.
Right.
That's cool. I was going to go inside, but
Did you feel
this
the
isn't
gun
working
in your
for me.
back then?
he had it to my neck.
Oh, to your neck.
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, it actually was touching.
It was
your-
touching my neck. And
Wow.
he wasn't deterred by the number of people at home.
That was a good effort, though.
I
That's
tried.
a solid
I
number.
tried.
So, did you go inside?
So I went inside, and the first room to the right was this room where my brothers kept their computers. I have 3 brothers, one older than me and 2 younger. And they were playing, I think, Diablo or something with my older brother and my younger brother were playing, and the youngest was just going back and forth.
Like how
Just
old?
kinda-
How old were they? Probably.
My older brother was
Approximately.
21.
Okay.
My younger brother was about 17, and then my youngest was 11 or 12.
I'm just trying to. I mean, if they were like 8 or 9,
Yeah.
I mean, that
Oh,
would have
yeah.
been traumatizing.
That'd
yeah,
be bad.
that would be completely traumatizing.
Yeah.
So I show up with this guy who has a gun to my neck, and I'm like, hey, guys. And my older brother just looks at me and laughs. He's just like, and goes back to playing Diablo. And I was like, guys. And then the guy was like, I'm not fucking around, blah, blah. You guys think this is fucking funny? And my younger brother looks at him and is like, hey, man, watch your language in front of the kid. And my youngest brother then proceeds to go up and slap the gun. Like, he was still holding on to it, but slapped it, right?
Oh
Thinking
my
that he was like
gosh.
joking around. I was like,
No way.
gonna slap the gun because you're being silly.
You do when you're like,
Yes,
I'm
you
joking
do.
around. Just hit the gun.
And I'm
whatever.
just, in my mind, I'm like,
I
this is
mean-
not happening.
And you
Oh my
weren't like
gosh.
peeing your pants or anything?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
I'm
she did.
freaking out.
She peed her
I
pants.
literally peed my pants.
I would
at that
have. I
moment.
would have.
No, unfortunately, I didn't have to pee at the moment.
Oh,
so
man.
Oh, okay.
I've heard that's a good way to deter.
I should have thought of that. Why did I go for the numbers? I should have just pissed myself.
both.
Was he was there to steal stuff out
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
house, right?
So anyway, he started just saying all this shit, and my older brother finally caught on that he wasn't joking around. He's like, okay, man, like, what do you want? What do you need? And he's like, who's here? And he's like, my parents are upstairs. And so he's like, okay, let's go. He's like, turn around, go upstairs. And we get to upstairs, and he makes my brothers look up to the, like, against the wall where they're not allowed to look at him. And he's like, okay, go grab your parents. And my brother knocks on the door, and he's like, Dad, there's someone here to see you. And it was like 10 o'clock on a Sunday, right? Who's going to be fucking there to see my dad? So my dad starts calling the cops and like gives my mom the phone and like tells her to go into the closet.
Like he knew before he
knew.
came out that that was weird.
And so he comes out and he sees me like with a gun to my neck and my brothers against the wall. And my dad was just like, take whatever you want. He's like, just whatever you want, take
Yeah.
it. He's like, do you want my card? Do you want this and that? And he's like, no, where's your wife? Where's your fucking wife? And he's like, okay, like, let me grab her. And so my mom had to hang up on the cops, and she came out, and they were just like, we don't have anything. He wanted to look at my mom's jewelry, and she wears plastic jewelry. Like, she doesn't wear anything fancy. Like, my parents aren't fancy people.
I mean, was it a fancy house, or I mean,
no,
rich
not
area?
really. Like, I mean,
It was a nice house.
yeah, like nothing that you'd go into and be like, oh man, this is a huge home. But like,
Sure.
yeah, it's like, it's a nice house. Like, my parents keep it nice.
Sure.
So the phone rings, and this whole time my sister's been downstairs watching the rat race.
it sounds like you almost had 10 people in there. I'm just going to throw that in there.
No, totally. And that's why, and my brother-in-law was living with us at the time too. So, but he wasn't there that night.
Oh.
But I was close.
Yeah, totally.
Right? I don't know why it didn't deter him. Fucking. Anyway, so my sister picks up the phone and she thinks it's weird that the police are calling. So she comes up to the bottom of the stairs and she's like, did anybody call the police?
Oh, no.
And she looks up and she sees me with the gun against my neck and my brother's against the wall. And she just goes and runs into the backyard because she doesn't know how many people are in the house, how long they've been in the house, what's going on. And so she just runs back there. And so she's talking to the cops. And this whole time we're having this exchange with my dad. And my parents told a friend of my mom who had just moved to North Hollywood that they would hold on to this $5,000 that she had in cash, right? Because she's like, hey, can you guys hold on to this for me because I'm moving to North Hollywood and it's safer where you are? So
I guess not. Right?
So my dad's like, hey, I have $5,000 because he just wanted to make the guy happy. He didn't care,
sure.
right? He's like, obviously, this guy, he's not going to leave with nothing.
Right.
So he goes downstairs into his office. I'm following with the guy with the gun to my neck.
He just kind of carried you around everywhere. With the gun.
Basically.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Were you thinking at all maybe I can escape right now? Was any of that going through your head?
I had those moments
Yeah.
where I was like, okay, what
I saw this in a movie. Boom.
Yeah.
Hit him in the face. Or
Yeah,
something.
but then when you feel like how heavy is a Glock, right? I don't know.
Was it a Glock? It was probably just a couple nickels.
Fun fact.
It was a roll of quarters.
No, but I mean, I've never had that happen, so
Right,
I'm
no.
curious.
So when
if
you can
remember
actually
what
you
was
feel
going.
the weight of the gun.
Yeah.
Right? When
They're
it's up
solid.
against your neck, you can feel how heavy it is and you feel how solid the metal is. And I'm just I'm not going to fuck with him. That's the last thing. Because I did think about it, especially he grabbed my purse from me and flipped it upside down, typical, kind of, what'd you get in here? Shake it up. I had nothing. I think I had lipstick in my wallet. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I was at that moment that I was I could probably hit him. And I'm no, but I also don't want to get raped right now. So that's the other side of it too, right?
Yeah.
So we go downstairs, we grab the cash, and as we're going up the stairs, he leaves. And shortly after, the police show up, and we're laughing hysterically. And
As you do.
That's what
happens when you get robbed at
Valerie
gunpoint.
went outside because she didn't know how many people were in the house. And then Andrew hit the gun.
Is it possible that this is why your brothers thought you were joking at first?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, of course, that's why they thought it was a joke because...
Yeah.
I mean,
That's how you joke?
Typical Stefanie bringing in strange men with
Guns
weapons.
against her neck. Guys, check this joke out. This is going to go over really well.
That is,
Yeah.
wow.
But here's the thing. Before I moved out here, this was 2 or 3 years later.
Oh, that's right, because this was in LA area.
This was in LA.
Okay,
Yeah.
so okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 2 or 3 years later, when I was moving out here, this was just before I moved out here, and I was pumping gas at the gas station and I saw that the machine was broken. So I had to go inside and pay. And I'm there waiting in line and I'm looking at the guy who's in front of me and I look at his tattoos and I'm those look really familiar. And then all of a sudden I'm oh shit. It was this slow motion moment. And I remembered I felt so flushed and I'm just staring down at the ground. I'm don't look at him. Don't look at him. He doesn't remember. Why would he remember you? That's
so-
2 or 3 years ago.
It was that guy.
It was that guy.
It was
here in Utah.
No, this was before I moved to Utah.
okay.
But this
Yeah.
was 2 or 3 years later,
Yeah.
in LA, just before I moved out here.
What?
And I'm don't worry, he doesn't even, why would he remember you? Right? Whatever.
I'd
And
remember you.
That's what you think. And then you, I don't know. I just think 2 or 3 years goes by. And
Yeah, and how many guys? He must have robbed a million people in between, right?
At least a million.
At least.
At least a million.
And so I go into my
wow.
car and I'm trying to text my dad or call him because I don't know what to do. Because I don't, do I call the police or what? And he goes into his truck and his friend comes out of the truck and is just arms crossed, staring at me. So I'm like, I can't call.
Yeah.
And so I just like try to like play it cool and just not stare, because that's how you play it cool, is by being really stiff,
Being really awkward. Yeah. Only looking forward.
But yeah, that's the story.
That is, I'm
Isn't that
glad you
nuts?
asked that question.
It's a great story.
It really.
story.
I know it has nothing to do with the band, but I mean, I like to. I
But
like
she's
to get to
alive
know-
and now she's part of the
she
band.
uses that
I
deep
use that.
sadness.
Yeah.
Right. Speaking of who writes the music, like, do you guys write it together?
Not necessarily. Like we will arrange together. But like a lot of the stuff, like we'll start with me, and then like I'll bring it to Steph. She's like, how do you feel about like I'll get like suggestions on how this like should sound or how this should work. So it's like it'll start with me, and then we go back and forth. So it's like it's never like we're in the same room together. It's more like it's me then her then me then her then me then her. So yeah, just like lots of back and forth.
It's like a process.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever totally disagree on one part of it? Or like if you do something, you send it
Yeah.
over and she's like, I don't like that. And you're like, but I love it.
And then one's like,
And then how do
shut
you-
up, I don't want to talk to you.
and then
We're
you-
breaking the band up.
And then he throws hot coffee in my face.
Yeah.
And I just run over.
That sounds
I
about
can
right.
show you the scars later.
I mean, I would be curious. I mean, it's probably a lot easier with only two people again,
Sure.
versus like getting the approval of 4 and 5 people.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely like some back and forth, because like there was one song, for example, what was it? Was it a night? Yeah. Like we couldn't quite figure it out, because there's like it sounds noisy, but then it's like kind of surfy. It's weird. And we were going back and forth about it, and then I created this different mix of it, and
Bryan
it's
wanted
just
to get rid of the song, and I'm like, no way, I fucking love this song.
because it wasn't working for me. Like every mix I would do just didn't make sense. Like I couldn't put
Didn't
it
click.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
and so I would play it for Steph, and it made sense to her. And then after like, so we went a few mixes down. She's like, no, this is not the best mix. We should go back to the other one. And then I just, after letting it sit for a while, then it made sense. Like,
Sure.
yeah. So it's interesting like
But
that.
like it's really
Yeah.
collaborative, and I think we don't usually have those moments of I really like this, and the other person saying, well, I don't.
Yeah.
So who wins,
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, why do you like this? Or
Mm-hmm.
why don't you like this? And is there an in between? Is there a way that we can make this song awesome? Because Bryan really didn't like that song and was ready to just get rid of it. And I was like, no, but I love that song. And he's like, okay, how can we make this work out? And like we also work on arrangements together. And yeah, so I think it worked out awesome, even better, right? Because it's just like, okay, why? What's the reason? Because there are sometimes when he's like, I really don't like this because of this. And I was like, you're right.
Yeah.
Let's just scrap it.
So you're really
Yeah.
good at
Right.
throwing pride out the window
Yeah.
and just being really objective about
Right.
the music that you're creating.
Yeah, well, you have to. I mean, we'll try to be, because it's weird, especially when you like we'll play it for certain friends, and they'll like songs that I don't feel that great about, or at least at one point I liked, and then I just kind of like, I don't know how I feel about it. But people respond really well. There's this one, Killer on the Road, but I don't like how I'm singing it, but people seem to gravitate to that song really. Like pretty often, which I don't get, but like that's the thing. Like I don't recognize it, but other people find like value in it. So I have to also kind of just like lean on what like Steph says, or what like
The response from people.
because I have no idea like what people are gonna like or not. I can
Yeah,
just make
and like
what
your
think
own
I
opinion
like.
isn't the only valid one, right? And what's great about doing music this time around is that we're able to kind of separate it from it emotionally, right? I've noticed that this time around, it's just like easier to just be more objective, and I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you're still right for yourself, but then you also like, you try not to be as like self-indulgent as possible, because we used to, I mean, since we mostly play like psychedelic music and like fairly droning music, we would have songs that just like went on forever. Cause like, that's just,
Because you enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, because I enjoyed it, but it's
Yeah.
just like it's so masturbatory. Like you're just like one note for eternity, which is great, and I still love that. But I try to keep that in check, because every song would turn into like the longest song.
Right.
It would be like 20 minutes solos.
We actually need to take a quick break, play a message from our sponsor. I hate to interrupt the conversation here, but we'll be back and we'll chat some more. So hang tight 1 second here. This episode of I Am Salt Lake Podcast is proudly sponsored by Jed's Barbershop. With 3 locations, you have no reason to not always look your best. Go get a haircut, a beard trim, or even a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday 9 to 7, and Sunday 12 to 5. Their newest third location is located at 167 East, 900 South, right next to Randy's Records. They also have a location downtown at 212 South, 700 East, and in Sugar House at 2153 East, 2100 South. Head on over to jedsbarbershop.com for more information. And I'll let each one of you answer this individually if you would like, but what do you like the most about playing music?
Did you want to go first?
Yeah, I love playing instruments. Like, I loved playing the drums. And with this project, I'm learning how to play bass. So I'm playing bass in the project, but I'm not the best at it, but it's been really fun just learning a new instrument. And I have a lot of fun playing instruments and creating. It's super creative.
What is it that you think you love? I mean, I'm genuinely curious. I've tried taking music lessons, and I've just, I never had that. You know, I hated practicing. I hated, and it just never.
Well, you said you play, right? Yeah.
Well, I can play, sort of.
Nice.
I mean, I grew up my violin, guitar, banjo, piano. Yeah. Taking a ton of musical instruments.
Right. We should be interviewing you.
I always hated it, though. Yeah. So I never really got good at it.
Right.
You know, I learned how to read music and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I've always been curious what it is that people love about it.
I love playing an instrument, and I'm like, I just love music.
Yeah.
And I feel super connected to music. And then when I'm playing an instrument and I'm making that music, it's just really satisfying and really cool to me that I'm like, oh man, I don't know. It's just really
I get it. It's probably the same way with like you and I, Crispy, with podcasting, right? Like some people don't get it, right?
Yeah.
Like, why do you want to sit around and talk to people? You know? But I don't know. There's something I like about it.
Yeah, no, there's something satisfying that you can't. So we stopped for a while to go back to school and then just to like focus on just like being able to pay the bills, because I mean,
being an adult,
being
bullshit.
Seriously,
continue.
Well, because being in a band is also it's not always financially beneficial, you know. And so after doing that for so long,
expensive hobby,
right? It definitely is. You know, went back to school and took a break, and it was interesting. You know, I would still kind of write in my head and just like had like leftover songs. But coming back to it, it's been nice. Like the break has been excellent for me, because now I can compartmentalize like how I see live shows versus creating music. Like I love playing live shows, but that's the cherry on the cake. That's the gravy. Like you earn that through writing the song. And I love writing songs and like just experimenting with different types of music. I mean, even now there's a lot of like with our music, it's pretty beat heavy, and it's mostly because we, you know, our taste in music is so diverse. I mean, I don't just love like rock and roll. I love country. I love hip hop. Like, I mean, I grew up on a lot of hip hop, even as well as like rock and roll. And so it seemed kind of dishonest to me to not blend that, even though it's not like people are like, oh yeah, let's make this like hip hop like beat album that's also kind of like sounds like the Stooges or something. But I just wanted to see if I could try that. I was like, I'll take a shot, because like that's my favorite part, is the experimentation. And you know, going back to how you said you know you took a lot of lessons when you were growing up, I didn't do that. I started on my own, and it was so satisfying, just like figuring out on my own. And then when I started taking guitar lessons, I had to quit, because I'm like, this fucking sucks. Like it's making me hate guitar. But now, like years later, I've been able to, you know, learn independently or teach myself classically, because I also know that there's only so far you can go just learning on your own. Like I can play really well by ear, and I would play with like much better musicians, but there's like this shorthand that we didn't have, because they're like, oh, we're in this key, that key, and I had no idea. But once I started playing, I could just catch up, and I knew plenty of like bars and scales and stuff that I could just match right in. But we couldn't speak the same language, you know. But now it's not a problem. But yeah. But I almost like had to like stop
because
lessons because it was like ruining it for me.
Well, do you think
they're
holding you in a box maybe too? It's like, okay, you got to learn this before you can go over to here and do this instead of just. Yeah. I've and maybe I'm wrong, but like I've read interviews with musicians. I'm sure everybody here has, but it seems like a lot they play, but then you find out they don't even know a lot of proper techniques.
Oh, yeah.
Because they've taught themselves. And it's like, well, that's the way I taught myself.
Right.
And
It's kind of like how I feel about art. Like when you're being
Yeah.
taught art growing up, or like you should do this way, this way, this way. You're not allowing people to actually be creative and learn the way they want to learn and see things from the perspective that's actually going to create something new.
Sure.
But I think that there's also a time and a place for that, right? So I grew up teaching myself how to play the drums. And then once I got to be about 18, so I started when I was 13. And when I got to be about 18, I was like, okay, well, there's only so much I can teach myself.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'd love to just have someone show me like the right technique and like, or quote unquote, right. The right technique or even just some new ways of playing. And I had 4 different teachers and I got to learn from their styles, right? And that was also really beneficial. But I'm glad that I already had the time to experiment on my own and kind of find my own style before I
And like create a love for it before you.
Was it tough though?
Yeah.
Like you learned it a certain way, and then being taught a different way. Was that tough for you to be like, whoa, wait a minute?
It was fun.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
See, and that's how like the guitar was for me later, in that I had all this like technique that I developed, but then I was able to like filter the actual way that you would do it through that. So now like I know how I would play it, and then I can just like enjoy like, this is interesting. I would not make this chord structure like this. I would make it like this, and then it's funny, and then you would from the teacher or whatever kind of thing you're using to learn, it comes out later. It's like, this is how people do it, but officially you can do whatever you want. And so I would make, chord structures based on what's coming next. So it was all very easy. Not like, does that make sense? Like the shapes match other shapes that are surrounding it. So it's easier and quicker to play without looking. So yeah.
That's a good analogy for someone who doesn't do strings. Shapes look like other shapes.
Have you ever taken music lessons, Chrissy?
I took piano lessons. I used to play the trumpet and
nice.
drums.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, like that stuff. I can play any brass instrument basically. But I tried strings. I really wanted to do strings, and
She sings. Have you heard her CD?
I haven't.
I found a copy of a CD that she
Chrissy,
recorded.
why do I not know
We're hearing this now, like live
Right?
on the podcast.
Yeah.
We should dump her song in
from-
this
Yes.
podcast.
Okay.
I was like 16.
And this is where we're
and
going
we
to
made a
play
CD.
Chrissy's
song.
No, I found
And it's
this.
called
Chrissy, what
On
song
Wings
would
of an
you
Angel.
like us to?
On Wings of an Angel.
Yep, that's my style.
No, it was a funny when I found it.
Yeah, and my mom
Really
gave it
short
to you.
hair, if I remember correctly, on the
Yep.
cover of it.
Yep.
Were you all
I
punky
would think
then?
it was called My Sisters and Me. What?
Were you all punky then?
Oh, I tried.
Yeah.
I made my own
No,
clothes.
She looked
and-
more like. I won't go into
awkward.
that.
Let's go with awkward.
No, I won't go into
Not
that.
much
on
has
the
changed.
Okay.
Still very awkward.
Anyway,
I love it.
So yeah.
what would you guys? I mean, being a Salt Lake City band, right? Like we obviously have a lot of Salt Lake City listeners. People that are listening here in town that are interested in creating music, starting a band. What advice would you give? I mean, especially since you're familiar with the local music scene, like somebody like myself who might not know certain people, but it's like, I want to play in a band. What would you recommend to me?
For like starting?
Yeah,
Or,
like say I'm just like, man, like let's pretend I play the guitar really, really good.
Right.
I'm ready to start playing music.
Yeah.
But I don't know where to go.
Oh, that's easy. I mean, just go to shows that of music that you like. And so
Sure.
if you're whatever.
But it's not always that easy to go
Yeah.
talk to people, though.
But there will be like people that are of your same age that are. I mean, it's like-minded people. I mean, if you're into some obscure band, but they're coming through Salt Lake once, they're at Kilby, and you go there, and the other 3 people probably play an instrument too. And I that like right away is your way to begin talking with them. Like, hey, you like this band? You like this music? We probably would make the same type of music together. Sure. Yeah, because even as time went on, like you're just, and at the very least, they'll become your friends, or you'll just from being out and being at shows, you just recognize people. I mean, there are people that I'd seen at shows for years before I even like knew them, but it's like as time went on, they become your.
I mean, it's Small Lake City.
It's so
Yeah,
small, yeah.
it's so
Yeah,
small.
they become your friends, and
Like if you have one friend that plays an instrument or played in a band locally, chances are you're probably 1 degree away from
and
someone
you
who's
played
going
with
to join
their
you.
band.
Steph, when
yeah.
you moved here, how did you get involved?
So I had a friend, Kenny, who I knew in LA, and he moved out here probably a month or so before I did. And so when I moved out here, he was just like, hey, you should meet my friends.
That's
And-
nice.
Yeah.
What a handy way to make friends.
And honestly, most of the friends that I've made out here have been from out of state, just because I've noticed that most of the people that I've met in state, they're hanging out with their best friends from kindergarten.
Yeah.
Right. So it's been easier to make friends with people who grew up out of state. But that was just kind of,
Yeah.
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 I've always just, with doing the podcast, obviously, is where I kind of connect things to. But I've discovered so many people that it's like they don't even know where to start here. And that's why I asked such a simple question
Right.
that I was asking, because I think a lot of people, they just don't know where to start. So then they start to kind of isolate themselves even a little bit.
Right.
Oh, this city sucks and there's nothing to do here.
Yeah.
And it's like if they would just get out, and I mean, there's so much going on.
Right. Right.
It's just hard to know where to find the people and places.
Do you have a favorite like bar or venue that you like playing, or have you played all of them, or probably not all of them? You played the Garage just a little
We
bit
played
ago.
the Garage, and then we were in Ogden. We played, was it Kamikazes?
What'd you think of
yeah.
that place?
That was great. We played there
I love that
before.
bar.
It had been a long time. Like we hadn't played there in maybe like 6 years, so it was nice to be back.
I'm trying to think my mind is blank. I know who I picture the album of the musician I saw at Kamikazes. Interesting place though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting place.
But yeah, I mean, we played urban a lot back in the day. We haven't played very many shows since we've been out.
Recently.
Yeah, we played Diabolical. That was actually awesome. I
Yeah.
highly recommend it. If you're like a local band, like you should play Diabolical Records. It's a cool small venue, and I mean, but that's all you really need for an independent band is just like no stage, small room, because you're not going to pack a club anyways. Like you're some small unknown band. So it just feels way more rock and roll. There's like all this vinyl lining the walls. It was awesome. Yeah, that was a great place. So thank you, Diabolical, for letting us play there. That was cool.
I need to get the guys with Diabolical on.
You should.
You should,
on the
yeah.
podcast here.
they're
They've
really
been
nice.
on the list of
Yeah.
people. So many people here in Salt Lake.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Let's talk about like releases and stuff. So you have a couple of albums or
Actually,
CPs or what do you have?
We have okay, so we actually got this small label deal. So we're actually on this. So we were signed to Echo Drug, which is out of New York last year, like pretty early on, based on like some of the singles that we'd released, and they asked if we had a full album, and so
So you made one really quick.
so we, we had it, and then things weren't going well internally. So the guys who we knew, which is Todd, and Ben, and they were the ones who were our contacts, and they said, hey, we'd still really like to do business with you, but we're gonna start our own label called The Rolling People, and we'd like you guys to come over. It's like, oh, cool. So let's do that. I mean, those guys were great, and that is actually coming out next Friday, so July 14th. Our vinyl.
So this upcoming Friday.
Yeah, this upcoming Friday. So this is actually very.
So this because like I said, this will
good.
be up. So this episode will be up a couple days after that.
Oh, cool.
So
Yeah,
how
so-
can people
So-
buy
Still
it?
drive.
then?
The 14th, they will be doing a pre-order.
Pre-order.
Okay.
So if they check out The Rolling People, they have an Instagram and then
And a website,
And a
yeah.
website. So,
So, and they could buy the album.
The vinyl,
There'll be
of our full album.
Yeah, there will be the pre-ordered. So we have Offer Your Throat, which is our album in the digital form.
Yeah.
And then what we're releasing with them is Killer on the Road. It's a album titled after our song Killer on the Road.
Plus 3 bonus
So
tracks,
there will
yeah.
be 3 bonus tracks on that. And if you haven't checked out their vinyl, it's so cool. They do even their stuff before as Echo Drug, and then now as The Rolling People, they just do really cool shit.
It's really beautiful vinyl. Like if you're into
like color.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like it's all custom, like poured vinyl. So like they choose the colors, like based on the band and like what like they think represents the visuals of the band, and it's really cool. I mean, right away once they asked, we were we were just blushing because like their vinyl is cool. It's just so fucking cool. You just want to own it, like regardless,
just
like
to
of,
have it.
exactly, like of who's like playing or on that label. So their stuff is really great.
And-
So
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
And-
no, yeah, go ahead.
And they'll be releasing 3 different styles too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, 3
so
different
you'll
variants.
have a choice of 3 different color mixtures or whatever they came up with.
And
So.
it's the rollingpeopleprobably.com.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, because I'll put the links for all of that with this episode too. So I mean, I didn't even realize that
know
this
that you guys
episode's
were
kind of
putting out a
coming
new
out at a
album.
good time.
No, it was
then.
well because it just barely kind of came together. We didn't know this was a year ago. Where we started talking about like releasing the album, and we didn't know if it was going to happen because just the transition and the shift to this new label just took longer than they had expected and we'd expected, but then just out of the blue, they're like, "Hey, we're ready to go. Like, let's do this." And
how many songs are going to be on this release?
So there'll be 11.
Oh wow! So full length. Yeah,
full length. Yeah, we so our digital album, Off Your Throat, which is everywhere like Spotify, iTunes, and stuff, has just 8 songs, and so we have 3 that we're doing specifically for this release for them. So yeah, that's
cool.
Yeah, never been heard. Actually, we're still. It's like to the wire because we're mixing it like before we came, like that's just what we're doing all day. So,
Oh, really? Because we're like, crap, we better get this out.
yeah, because like we got to get the songs to them by the 14th, and then
Wow.
and then it goes into production.
Do you see yourself? I mean, are you going to try to get out and play a lot of shows then?
Yeah,
in support of that album. I mean,
Yeah.
here in Salt Lake, do you think you'll get out of Salt Lake at all?
Well, I mean, the goal is to tour as much as possible. It's harder to like. I really like Salt Lake, and we'll definitely do like. I'd probably do a DJ night and just like and play some shows here and there. But it's hard here because like you work, and so it's like if any day you go play a show, you work the next day, and so it's so exhausting. When we played the garage,
take the day off.
I know, right? Or you end up playing through the weekend. Oh, sorry about that. And it just takes a lot out of you. I was shocked because we hadn't played in a while, and we played that like 2 like back-to-back shows, like the garage on Friday, then Ogden on Saturday. And I was just so fucking tired.
I could imagine.
Like, we
Like by the
worked
time you
all
have
day.
to go back to work, like adult work on Monday, you're just like, where?
busy
I
all
never
day.
had a weekend.
Yeah, just
and
like
I'm sure there was a
playing.
little drinking involved, so
Oh,
that
yeah.
probably
Well, I mean,
wore you
there's
out.
just a
You
little.
know, and I know how it is as we get older.
Exactly,
right?
Just
yeah.
enough to
Can't-
forget Sunday,
We
right?
it's harder to get over it,
Yeah.
man. Those
Yeah.
hangovers.
Yeah,
will
and
kill
I
you.
mean, we did both of those shows with Spindrift, so a couple of the members were staying with us as well all weekend long, and so
Andy, we're dog sitting. I know too much about you guys.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's been like every weekend has been like full house, like just full of people.
You
or
like take care of
dogs.
everyone
It's-
and do your thing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So, well, as far as local shows go, I think our plan is to try and play as much as possible outside of the state. I love playing locally, but you can burn people out really easily
course.
locally.
Yeah.
Right.
You kind of have a limited amount of people in the area.
Yeah.
They're like,
I mean, they're
seen
great
them.
and they're
Like, why
super
would I see
supportive,
them?
but I don't want to
Exactly.
burn people out by being like,
Yeah.
hey, come to our show once a month or like once
I don't
want
to do that to my friends. We used to do that all the
Yeah.
time, and I just it felt kind of bad.
Yeah.
And we would play a lot locally, and yeah, it's just become kind
And
of
it also
exhausting.
became, that was the only time I saw my friends was if they came to our show.
right.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
So, but I don't want to do that. So.
You want to actually like be with your friends
I
when you're
wanna-
with them? Yeah, that makes sense.
Is there anywhere in particular? I mean, believe it or not, we actually have listeners from all over.
Yeah.
So I was just curious if there's like any states that you would like to go to, or I guess that's kind of a big question too, because there's 50 states out there.
Yeah.
At least 51 of them.
Probably get into Idaho, Colorado, Arizona, California.
Yeah, I mean, we've
Yeah.
been through LA and Vegas in as, like Plastic Furs, and then so it'd be nice to go back through there. I mean, we always had like a really good following in Vegas, which is really cool. I mean, just a good show for towns, but everywhere's always been pretty great. I'd like to go to more back east. I've never been.
Yeah, we're trying to book back east now.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we have some friends
we
in
started.
Washington.
We got a contact out in DC,
Mm-hmm.
and so we kind of thought from there maybe we'd try and see what we could get. But there's that, and then Los Angeles, Vegas,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Austin.
Well, the beautiful thing about the East Coast, I lived out there for a while, is the cities are so close together.
That's what everyone says.
You
Yeah.
know, you're 3 hours in this city, another 3 hours here, and it's like, so you're not killing a lot of money on gas.
Right.
So that works out really, really, really well. Before we go too far, I do like to find out a little bit more about people we bring on. Other hobbies and interests besides playing music. Is there anything else that you like to do or that occupies your time? Or
What do you like to do, Steph?
music? Is that's it? Huh?
Honestly, music has kind of taken the front wheel. Like, I don't know. It's the only thing I basically do now other than work.
You'll read books. You like to read, watch television.
Here's the thing. Like, I used to also like, I was starting a fashion line for a while and trying to do that plus music plus work and learning how to program and all this stuff. It's a lot of fun, but
You'll wear out real fast.
you wear out.
Yeah.
And so we're just trying to put as much of our energy into music right now just to see kind of where it'll take us, because I also don't like the idea that I didn't give it the chance that it needed. And so I went through this period of just like trying to like shed my hobbies and being like, okay, what am I actually focusing on right now? So
You kind of have to
Yeah.
do that when you're, I swear, like you have to kind of just pick something to focus on.
Right.
And sadly let everything else fall to the wayside. But okay, and I know more about stuff, so I'm being.
Go right ahead.
But wasn't it because of your fashion line that you started getting into programming?
yes.
And
yeah.
and then now you're a front end developer.
Yeah.
Which is just blows my. I'm always like, how does she do all that stuff? That's crazy. And then you're a graphic designer.
Yeah. So I when I went back to school, I mean, I painted most of my life. And so that's what I did. Also for the band. So I would do like a lot of the graphic work as well. And then went to school for design and just ended up working for like some firms locally. And now I'm actually like creative director for a company here. So that's,
Nice.
yeah. So just like working.
And you do
alongside-
actually the artwork for Beasts.
Yeah. So
Because
we'll
it
do all
is
the stuff.
gorgeous.
Oh, cool.
I
That's
kind of
great.
thought
Okay,
you
that's
did
cool.
it. I
So
wasn't
people that
sure.
can go
But-
check it out.
Yeah, so, like, all the-
Bryan's the guy behind it.
Yeah, all the like the merch and like the design stuff and
Yeah,
like
all the
our
branding.
Yeah, and like the website and everything. Like so, I like built that. And,
That works out well.
Yeah, no, it's been good. I mean, it's funny.
And that was
'cause
also kind of the plan,
why
though,
I went,
right?
Yeah, when we went back to school, it's like let's just study shit that we want to know, and then also that we can use for the band. Because even though
So
we
you can
like,
build an empire.
Yeah.
You know?
well, because even though we knew we were like taking a break from music, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Officially a break. It's like I knew I was studying things that I could funnel into the band. Like even with this like we record all of our own stuff now. I mean, we wanted
Oh,
to do
wow.
it all like on our own, like mix it, master it. Like we like just do it all.
Oh wow! So you
Yeah.
don't even have to pay for recording.
No,
time,
I mean
right?
that was the hardest thing too. I mean, when we had all these different members, and then we'd have to go to a studio, and it was great because like one of the members had a studio and he recorded bands, but it was still it's just difficult. It's so time consuming, and then and I also felt like kind of like just hobbled that I couldn't record on my own, and like I couldn't write as consistently on my own, and
Like you felt limited.
Yeah, well, and
like,
then
it was on his
like your
time, not
music
mine. Yeah.
also
Yeah.
comes out being filtered through that person's lens,
Exactly.
instead of your own. So
Yeah.
when you're thinking of how you want that to sound, and it goes through somebody else's hands, you're just like,
Yeah.
that's not what I wanted. Like, not that it sounds bad, but that's
Yeah, no, it's just
like it's
not
just
what we had
filtered
in mind.
through
So
their taste.
Did you guys
right?
actually have to go and teach yourself all the editing programs and
Yeah.
learn about recording gear and
Yeah.
you know?
So I mean, at a minimum though, like based on
Yeah.
based on what we needed. So like I don't have to, I don't know how to mic a full band, but I know how to make our band sound good.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know how to set up, like mics for drums completely, but like I can do it for us. Like it's pretty shitty, like our setup, but it works. Like I know enough that nobody's complained.
Yeah.
And but at
Well,
the
you
same
need to
time,
know.
yeah, I mean, but at the same time, even with like garage bands or like psych bands or just droney bands, like there's this nice kind of dirt that's on it. Like you grow up listening to punk rock music, and so you like that sound. And so if it's kind of dirty, it's a plus. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I like my
Do you-
music
like-
like I like my women.
Do you have
Dirty.
like a
Kinda
like,
dirty.
Disgusting.
Kinda
like a little
disgusting.
recording room then? It's like soundproofed room, or is it just
No.
kind of like
No
right in a
soundproofing.
living room or something like that? Huh?
It's in so I have like a little it's actually awesome. I have this this room that's kind of my office for like freelance
Sure,
contracting, but I put my computer in a closet, so it's like it's not comfortable. Like it's I took the door off of this closet and I put a little desk in there, and the computer sits in there, and so whenever I'm like mixing, I'm like kind of wedged between the door frame. I need to open it up. I've been meaning to like gut the wall, but it's pretty fun. I'm just like in there mixing, and then I'll bring on the mics upstairs and like
That's awesome.
That
man.
is awesome.
Yeah. So I was doing that like all day today, and it gets really hot in there. I was like sweating bullets in there because it's like all this gear.
I love
It's like-
people that get creative with what they're working with. It's like, let's work with what we have instead of wishing, I can't do it until I have all of this.
Exactly.
And I think so many people get caught up in that, right? And then they end up either spending way too much money and then not know how to use the equipment that they just
And then it
bought.
still sounds
Or-
like crap.
Or it becomes like a barrier to entry. And it's like, oh, well, I'll never do what I want to.
Right.
It's a good excuse for never attempting to be
do
creative.
anything. Yeah, like with this, like there's a high level of accountability. I kind of like it. It's like if I failed, I failed, like whatever. But I'm still glad that I'm like trying it because like I don't want to be my own barrier.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
just
Do
get
you
out of
guys
your own way.
would you have tips for someone who wants to be creative or do something and they're just like crippled by fear? What
Right.
would you tell them?
I would say find the person who like whatever artist or musician that you really like and try to copy them, and then try to copy another one, right? And then from there you'll kind of start establishing your own taste and the methods that you like. But there's no better teacher than trying to copy somebody else, I think.
No, really. I mean, and also today is probably one of the best times to be alive as an artist or as anybody who has any interest whatsoever, because all that information is available online for free. I mean, our first like programming software was just hacked, like just fucking free, just like download, like steal it. Like I don't, like, it's fine.
That's what torrent's for.
Exactly.
I didn't say that.
Yeah. But then later, I mean, once I started getting into it, it was like, okay, if I'm going to start doing this professionally, I just bought the software.
Right.
Yeah. So, but initially to play around with it, like I just hacked it. Like it's not, or just, you Google search it. I'm not some computer whiz. Like
Get free trials.
Yeah.
whatnot.
And every place has like a free trial. And like, there's so much free information on YouTube, like all these different tutorials about Logic Pro. I mean, which is what I use. It was the most like user-friendly engineering software that, scales up and scales down depending on like your needs. So, I mean, just try not to get in your own way. I mean, it's equally hard to be scared of what you want to do. And it's just as easy, like it's to just work on it. Like it's going to be painful regardless. Like you're either going to like feel regret that you didn't do it, or you're going to feel stronger that you did. So
Absolutely. A couple of Salt Lake City related questions while we kind of wrap this up here. I always like to ask, if somebody was visiting Salt Lake City, is there something you would tell them to go do or check out or visit? Say they're here for a day or two.
There's so many great places to eat in Salt Lake.
Like recommendations, what would you?
There's just so many places. I can't even, I'm trying not to think of like boring stuff, right? Like sushi, like everyone goes out to sushi. But like, like Sapa's great, right? Like they have that little bar in the back that's.
Oh, okay. Yeah. If you come to Salt Lake, you should go to Sapa's secret bar. It's not even like a secret, but it feels like a secret because I'd eaten there multiple times. I didn't know that there was, there was a bar in there, right? Have you been to Sapa?
I don't even know.
The secret bar?
I'm not a big sushi guy.
Okay. But you can be a
Chrissy is.
secret bar guy.
I've been there, but anyone can be a secret bar guy.
Yeah, it's low lit. Like I'd been there multiple times, and then somehow they just there wasn't a table ready, and they're like, "Oh, maybe you guys want to stay in our lounge?" Like lounge, like what? And then they take us to the back, open this door, and it's like black in this room, like just really low because your eyes have to adjust. It's like blue lighting, like, and they shut the door, like all the windows are blacked out, and so you're just like, this is cool as
You're like,
hell.
are you going to kill me now?
Yeah,
like,
I know,
what's happening?
And we just sat in there and drank. Like it was
feels like
great.
vampires are going to
that
come
does
out.
sound cool.
That is
It was like the first time I found out about the basement at Bodega. I don't know if you've ever been to Bodega.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, this is cool.
Yeah.
Taking me down to your secret little hideout.
And that's another great place, right? Like the Rest, I think it's called.
Yeah.
There's so many really cool places to eat and drink, and just go downtown and start walking around and stop into every place that you see where you can eat or drink.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that would
And then
be
try all the doors
funnest.
in the back and see what happens.
Take me to your secret place. I've heard there's a secret place here. It's like every place you go.
Yeah.
How can people find out about you? Links, social media.
Yeah,
How
so-
can listeners want to get in touch?
Yeah, I mean, we have a website, an Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that. So if you wanted to go to our website, it's just www.BYSTS.band. And that's
Oh, so you
that's
didn't
it.
do .com. You did
No,
.band.
they were like, hey, there's options. You don't have to do .com. They're like, people do .band if you're in a band. I was like,
And we're like, but we're in a band.
I'm in a band.
I'm in a band, so
No,
let's
that's
do
cool.
band.
That's
Yeah.
cool. You don't see a lot of that,
Yeah.
so people can remember it,
Yeah.
right?
We're probably most active on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's-
So
Everybody
I
always
think-
has a favorite social media,
Yeah.
I've noticed.
Yeah.
You only have enough time to have one favorite usually.
right.
Yeah.
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 And I'll put all those links at iamsaltlake.com with this episode. Anything else you want? Any shows? We have the release coming out the Friday, so it'll be the Friday before this comes out, the 14th of July.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to promote before I let you go?
No, just make sure you check out that pre-order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hop on that.
Yeah. Follow you guys for future updates of shows, right?
And,
Oh, yeah.
On
and
social media.
Instagram and Spotify,
Right.
like follow
Sure.
us on those two platforms. And
Yeah.
thanks.
Look for us in your city.
Let's,
we're booking tours.
I want to end this episode out, the podcast episode, with a song, if that's okay. Is there a song that we could play? You know, I know we played a song at the
Song
beginning.
of our choosing.
What would you like to end on? What do you? I
don't know.
We played Need. So.
Night.
Oh.
Since we were talking shit on that song
Yeah, since we
earlier.
were saying like, oh yeah.
People can actually judge for themselves.
Yeah, they're like, oh, you know what? Maybe you should have dropped it.
yeah, maybe you should.
Yeah, let's pick the song you hate the most.
I love it.
I know. I love that song.
it.
No, I love it. It took a minute.
Yeah.
There's different mixes, but yeah. Since
So it's night.
night, yeah.
Okay, well, in this podcast episode with that, thank you so much. Anything else you want to ask him, Chrissy?
I'm good.
All right.
Ready to listen.
Thank you so much, guys.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Many thanks again to Bryan and Stefanie from BYSTS for joining us on this episode of the podcast. I had a great conversation with them.
Oh, yeah. I could have kept going.
Finding out, I mean, they had some crazy stories that I'm glad, especially
know.
Stefanie, holy cow, held up at gunpoint.
She does all these things or has had all these things happen that you never know about because she doesn't talk about them.
All the links to connect with them and check out their music and find out when they're playing next. We're going to put all of that at iamsaltlake.com/286 for episode 286. Reach out to them. Buy that new album of theirs that just came out.
I kind of want it just to like look at it.
Yeah. Let them know you heard them on I Am Salt Lake podcast. But listen up, we got iTunes reviews. Every time I open up iTunes and see a new iTunes review, it gives me a warm fuzzy.
It
makes me feel special. Like all of this is worth it.
Yeah. It's just that extra like, good job, keep doing it that helps us keep going.
So I want to do. I want to read these here. The first one is from Brandon Hill 801. He writes, "The real Salt Lake. Utah and SLC have a national perception that simply isn't true. What Chris and his wife Chrissy have done is to tap into the real SLC, the people that make this city one of the hidden gems of the West. It's full of everyday stories of the everyman woman, whether you are a local who wants to stay in touch with your community or someone who wants to learn about the authentic SLC, you'll love this podcast."
I
That
love
one
it.
I feel like we need to put on, like, if we ever write a book
That
or
can be
something
just,
like that.
the
That's like that's
subtitle.
That's like what needs to be on the book or something. We got another one here from J. Miller Toy. He writes, "Great interviews of unique Salt Lake peeps. I thoroughly enjoy this podcast. Chris and Chrissy choose such a wide range of people that every interview is very different than the last. They keep the conversation moving. This is one podcast I look forward to every new episode." Hey, so we know we
cool.
got one listener out there that listens to every episode. I always wonder that, right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
one week we have a comedian and the next week we have an author and then a musician. But, you know, people like it.
Yeah. I mean, I like it.
One more iTunes review here, guys. It's a must listen by a bearded fan, fellow bearded listener. He writes, "Chris and Chrissy put on an amazing podcast and are amazing people. I can't wait for their new episode every week. As a lifelong Salt Laker, I have learned so much about the city that I call home, and I thank Chris and Chrissy every week. Thank you so much." Hey, if you guys want to leave an iTunes review, it would mean a lot. It helps boost our ratings. This podcast does great, but what we need right now is iTunes reviews. It kind of boosts it up.
Yeah.
My goal is to get in the top 10 in places and travel in iTunes.
How cool would that be?
And, I mean, you know, here's a local podcast about Salt Lake City. We need your iTunes reviews to make that happen. We got the listens. We can always use more listeners. But we got that. I feel like if we got the iTunes, it will bump the algorithms.
If we get your recommendation for other listeners, they'll want to come.
Absolutely. IamSaltLake.com/iTunes is going to forward you right to iTunes where you can leave a rating and review, just a few words, your thoughts on the podcast. And let's put this in the top of the charts. Seriously, guys. Hey, this episode of I Am Salt Lake podcast is proudly sponsored by Jed's Barbershop. With 3 locations, you have no reason to not always look your best. Go get a haircut, a beard trim, or even a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday, 9 to 7, and Sunday, 12 to 5. Their newest 3rd location is located at 167 East, 900 South, right next to Randy's Records. They also have a location downtown at 212 South, 700 East, and in Sugar House at 2153 East, 2100 South. No appointment is necessary. You just show up, get your name on the list. You're going to look good. And they were also recently voted best in state by City Weekly and KSL.
You know what? I've had quite a few conversations with guys at work. So many of them go to Jed's.
Because they give a good haircut and a good beard trim.
They do a great job. I mean, these guys talk about them all the time. It was really fun to be in the middle of it because
I know Jed.
It's fun to hear.
Hey, all right, that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to join our Facebook group by heading over to iamsaltlake.com/group. Introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, how long you've been listening, maybe some of your favorite episodes, and maybe a couple favorite local eating spots.
Yeah, what do you like about Salt Lake?
Yeah, so head on over there. Again, it's iamsaltlake.com/group. Like we mentioned in the interview, we're going to end out this episode with a song by BYSTS called Night. Thank you so much for listening. Here we go.